Hey everybody, welcome to Navigating Real Estate Turbulence. I'm John Lafferty with Century 21 Town & Country.
And I am Tony Abate with Ross Mortgage. We've got a great topic today. We're going to talk about love letters that buyers are using to help get their offer accepted. John, this is a topic that I'm really excited to talk about today because it's a little bit controversial, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You wouldn't think so, but it is a bit controversial. There's issues for fair housing that come up and come into play with it, and in fact, there's realtors out there that are listing agents that just absolutely refuse to present them.
Yeah. Let's paint the picture. Let's talk about exactly what we're talking about when we're speaking of love letters for sellers.
Sure. So you have a house that a buyer loves. They walk into it. It's what they've been looking for. They get the warm and fuzzies. Everything falls into place. And so they want their offer to stand out above every other offer that a seller is going to get. They don't want their offer to just be 6 pieces of paper with numbers on it. They want this owner to know who they are, why they love the home, and what their intention is with the home. And that way, a seller gets an idea of who these people are that are going to be buying their home. For some sellers, there's an emotional attachment to a home that they want somebody who is going to love the home as much as they did, or maybe they're going to raise a family in that home. And that's quite a few sellers. You've been in a home for 30 years. There's an emotional attachment there. Maybe you raised your family there. You and your husband, it was the first home you bought and you grew there. I mean, I think I told you last year I sold a home for first-time sellers after 53 years in that house.
Wow. Yeah.
53 years. I mean, you can imagine all the memories that have been there. They bought it brand new and just sold it last year. So you're submitting a love letter to a seller saying, we love the house and here's our intention with the home, and it paints sort of a picture for a seller. It's like, oh, that sounds really good. I can't imagine us selling our home to even that higher offer. These people have told us how much they love the home. And so you're trying to tug on a seller's heartstrings, that let them know that these people are going to take care of their home as much as they did and treat it with love and everything else that these people put into it. So that's kind of the idea behind it. And I will tell you, we've done them for a long time. They work.
Yeah.
They work a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I'll share with you, I had a seller last year. We had 3 offers on the table for their home, and one was the highest, one was kind of in the middle, but they needed some help, and then one was lower. The one that was the weakest was the one that came with a letter, and the sellers were almost ready to accept that offer. I really had to talk them out of it.
Wow.
And say, no, you're leaving a lot of money on the table here. We have to look at this. I know you like that idea, but they need the most help. You're going to walk away with less if you do that. Eventually they took my advice and took the better offer. You can see it does have an effect on a seller's approach to accepting offers, and that's the whole idea behind it.
Yeah. As a homeowner, I can see where that would come into play. If I'm selling my home, and I had knowledge that this potential buyer, hey, we can't wait to gut this place, or we're gonna knock it down and start fresh. I would take issue, and that might affect my judgment on whether I would want to accept that purchaser's offer or not. So I can see where you're coming from, where this impacts the seller's decision. So it sounds all good, but it comes with some barbed wire wrapped around it, doesn't it? There's some potential issues.
It does.
Yeah.
So NAR, the National Association of Realtors, has determined that buyer letters in some ways could violate fair housing rules or put a seller in a position that violates fair housing. So let's take an example. People lived in the home for 25 years. They raised their kids. They all went to school there. They're all grown. They've all moved away. It's an empty nester home now, and these sellers want to downsize. They get 3, 4, 5 offers. All of them are over asking. And out of those 4 offers, here's one that comes with a letter and says, "Oh my God, we love your home, and our 2 young kids are absolutely gonna love the backyard, and they're each gonna have their own room, and they love that. And my husband is gonna love the basement because he can do an office down there. Yada yada yada. Go on and on. And our names are Beth and Jim, and our kids' names are this and this. Just so you know who we are." Sounds great, right? Oh my gosh, what a nice letter to receive. Seller says to their agent, "Oh my God, I would love the idea of selling this home to somebody who has 2 young children. Let's sell it to them. I choose them because they have younger children."
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If they ever got out, that is discrimination. And the people whose offers were not accepted because maybe they don't have children, you might have a potential lawsuit on your hand. As a seller and as a listing agent, one of the things you have to advise your seller about is, look, as much as having this sounds great, we really have to be careful with letters like this, because it could put you, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, in a position to discriminate, even though your intention is not to. You just love the idea of selling it to a family. Well, familial status is a protected class, and can't discriminate against a single man, a couple without children. Just can't. As illogical as that sounds, that's the law, and that's what we have to deal with. So, and especially now with, if you think about it now, with people getting 5, 7, 10 offers all over list price, you'll have some people who lost a bid and will want to know why, and may not find out ever. But what if another house on the same street, which we know happens, a house gets listed on one street, and usually several weeks later, another home on the same street or one block over gets listed. And sometimes those people are neighbors and friends. And what if that person who put an offer on that home and lost, put an offer on this home, got it accepted, and then found out through talking to that neighbor, oh yeah, the people that bought that house over there, I was talking to the seller, they accepted the offer because they had children.
Yeah, that's a real sticky situation, isn't it? And then you take it one step further, and the seller had the best intentions in mind. But let's say that the other offer that wasn't accepted, what if it was slightly higher, and what if that purchaser was also in a protected class? Maybe they have a disability, maybe they're a minority, on and on and on. That's a real potential problem. So,
yeah. Without even going into that whole aspect. And, usually when you're going through purchase contracts with a seller, typically sellers just want to know the bottom line. What are our numbers? What am I walking away with? When do we close? Which one do you recommend or suggest that is the best one for me to take? Those are typical conversations, but you throw in a letter. Just by seeing the name, they make an assumption and say in a letter and decide to discriminate against that person because the name that's on the letter, right?
Right, good point.
Even though they have no intention and don't say it out loud, subconsciously they make a decision in their mind. Oh well, I'm not going to do that. There's definitely danger involved there with giving a seller an opportunity to read a buyer love letter.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got some published information from NAR, National Association of Realtors, and you can see that they're trying to straddle the appropriate fence. They can't necessarily tell a consumer what not to do or do, but they also have to make sure that they don't advise any party to get involved in something that could be deemed discriminatory or unfair. So some of the things that they advise, remind your clients that their decision to accept or reject an offer should be based on objective criteria only. That makes sense. If your client insists on drafting a buyer love letter, do not help your client draft or deliver it. I like this one as far as advice to agents. Avoid reading any love letter drafted or received by your client. So that's, it's like, here's 10 pages that we're going to review, but I can't review this one with you. So, you can see it really opens up a potential can of worms anyway with regard to what can happen. And, there's risk for the consumer, but there's certainly great risk for a real estate professional who you're licensed, you're bound by laws that say you have to make sure that all the decisions made in the transaction are made objectively and fairly.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you come to a crossroads, right? Do I even allow for those letters to be submitted, or do I take the bull by the horns, talk to my seller ahead of time and say, we're going to list your house? Somebody might submit a letter to you to talk about themselves. Here's why I don't think it's a good idea. Because of these things, what do you want to do, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? And let them make the decision and have an understanding. If they decide that they would like to accept the letter, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if one comes in with an offer, I'm just going to forward that letter to you. I'm not going to read it, and you'll have the decision to make on whether or not that influences which offer you're going to accept. Or you have the other decision, which I know other agents are doing, which is you shouldn't accept these, and here's why. This is my advice to you. As a listing agent, there are landmines and pitfalls to doing this, and here's why, and I don't think you should. And then if the seller agrees with you, then you say, okay, so I'm going to put it in private remarks in the comment section for all agents to see that we will not accept buyer letters. Yeah. And if one is attached, we're going to call you up and ask you to remove it and resubmit the offer.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I came across some other things that on the surface sound like it might be harmless communication from a buyer to a seller, but again, it could really be going down a slippery slope. One might be a letter that includes a note that says, "I can see our family celebrating Christmas here." So now you're tipping your hand that there's a religious aspect to it. I finally found a home that can accommodate my wheelchair after months of looking. So again, protected class comes into play. But on the surface, it's a seemingly harmless message, but it can be dangerous. And then it speaks to one that doesn't seem to have any risk to it. It says, I love your home. It's beautiful. I love how you remodeled it. I promise I won't tear it down and remodel it. So that's one that probably is not stepping outside the lines and just kind of telling the buyer's opinion of the home. So it's just interesting that at first blush, these things really it's just the buyer speaking from the heart. But it really can be. It has some dangers. It's got some dangers that are wrapped up in it.
It does. And the last one that you just read there is an example of how you still can write a letter to the seller without introducing any of those aspects that might violate the law. There are ways to do it. Another aspect too is some of the things that I've started seeing buyers do or with their offer is submit a video.
Interesting. So where does that fall on the spectrum of things, or is it uncharted territory?
It's uncharted territories. but I would just say I would imagine that if in a video you have a picture of you, your wife, your two kids saying, "We love the home, we can't wait to move in," I'd say you're really straddling that line, and there's a chance you've probably stepped over it, especially if the seller says, "Oh my God, their children are so, those two girls would be wonderful in this home. I could see it." Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're still in danger.
Yeah. And the unfortunate part of that is that if the video reveals, the racial makeup. Or other things that could cause the seller to make a decision for the wrong reasons. It's an unfortunate reality, but those are the things that get to be a little dangerous. I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if there's a local board opinion on this sort of thing, but I also read too that because there's all sorts of opinions. And like you said, some listing agents are going to say, look, I'm just not going to present your letter. That's it. I'm not going to do it. And in certain areas, what I've read is being done is that the love letter is being treated as an addendum to the contract to basically force the listing side to present it to the seller because it is part of the contract. That sounds a little weak and a little slim to me. But have you seen or heard anything relative to that being used as a workaround to having the letter presented?
No, I haven't. But what I will say is and this kind of goes back to, when a listing agent has instructions in the agent comments, here's how I want the offer submitted. These are the steps you need to follow to submit your offer. If you're the listing agent and you lay out these steps and somebody comes in with a sledgehammer and says, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do it my own way. Here you go. If you don't follow those steps, chances are what you're saying to the listing agent is, yeah, hey, so we're going to do things my way, and even though these are the steps you wanted me to follow, I don't care. We're going to do things my way. And when we're in the transaction, even though you had these other offers, this is how it's going to go. We're going to dictate how these things are going to roll, in my opinion. And so as a listing agent, you see that and you say, hey, seller, look, we've got these 4 offers. Here's somebody who didn't follow directions at all, just decided to do things their own way. I've seen this before. In my opinion, this is typically what this means. So are they the safest bet? In my opinion, probably not. They're probably going to be the most difficult to deal with. So our safer bet is probably one of the other 3. Now, that's my advice. The seller still can say, no, I'm still going to go with this one. I want to take a chance on that. But that's why we do what we do, and we give our advice. And in the end, it's still the seller's decision to decide how they want to do it.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely a seller's market, and they're calling the shots, and so that does come into play. These really create, I think, certain challenges, for real estate professionals like yourself. I find it kind of interesting that, on one hand, there's appropriate guidance and coaching that you would want to give to a buyer to make sure that a love letter remains safe and doesn't stray into any of those dangerous categories. But on the same token, you've got the guidance that says, from NAR, that says, as an agent, you should probably just stay away from coaching or assisting. So it's really a tricky issue, isn't it?
It is, because really what you want to do is put your buyer in the best position to win, and sometimes that means giving them an idea of how to construct a letter to submit that maybe doesn't cross any of those lines. And as a buyer agent, if a listing agent isn't telling me that they don't want to see a letter, then I'm probably going to advise my buyers, look, you should write a letter, but here's some things that can't be in it. Let's talk about how you love the home. Let's talk about some of the things that they've done over the years that really stood out to you, and let's do something, kind of formish, but you can tell this home was built with love. That whoever lived here absolutely put love and time into it, and you intend to do the same, without mentioning family, without mentioning any of those things that would put a seller in danger of making a decision and potential lawsuit. So there are still ways to write a love letter that can tug at a seller's heartstrings without putting them in danger of violating the law.
Yeah, and frankly, on the spectrum of things, to me it sounds like safer harbor, where a real estate professional does walk a consumer through that and says, look, this is an appropriate strategy. This can help you get a leg up, but there's certain things that you can or can't do when you're crafting these letters, as opposed to the guidance that is basically saying, as an agent, hands off altogether. I think that's what's really opening the door to some risk, because they could put anything in the letter if you're not monitoring or guiding.
So part of what NAR is saying there is, don't advise them, don't touch it, give them the listing agent's email address, have them forward to it. And I just think that's a little idiotic.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
You know, we're supposed to be professionals. We're supposed to guide our clients in telling them, hey, write a letter, but I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see the contents of it. And by the way, here's the listing agent's address. You send it to him separately. I'll send the offer over. I mean, why are we even getting paid if that's going to be our advice, is to be hands off? Our job is supposed to guide and educate and protect our clients through the process. And if we're not offering guidance, if we're just saying, hey, write a letter and submit it yourself, I mean, what the hell's the point?
Yeah.
Might as well just go to the listing agent then. If we're going to be hands off on everything and we're tiptoeing around each little pitfall or no, I mean, our job is to give them advice and to help protect them and not to put them or the seller in any kind of jeopardy. So my perspective from a buyer side is, if my buyer wants to write it, I'm going to help give them guidance and of things not to say in the letter. And if I'm on the listing side, you know, I'll have that conversation with my seller ahead of time, and it's their decision if they want to receive those letters. In the end, present them with the information, and it's their choice. You know, I think that's the best way to go. In the end, it's the seller's choice and the buyer's choice.
Yeah. John, that's great advice. And boy, you know, it just reinforces the need to be working with a good real estate professional in these kind of transactions. You know, and thinking it through, the whole idea of just letting a consumer fly blind on crafting a love letter. When we're talking about something that strays so close to fair housing issues, that's not the way to go. So yeah, I like your perspective on that.
Yeah, you know, I read an article, gosh, it was probably a year ago or so, and it was a big survey with home buyers, and it was breaking down sort of how many buyers who bought a home actually had remorse. And it was a pretty darn high number.
Wow.
And what were some of the major reasons why they had remorse? And I think number one on that list was unexpected repairs. Things that, you know, happen when you have a home that you weren't planning on, that just happen, and you've got to get them fixed. And one of the other top ones was their agent didn't educate them on the process, just kind of pushed them through. And so they bought a home, but they kind of don't know how the whole process worked. Yeah. And so they felt like they were kind of pushed into something. And when I work with buyers, and especially the agents at my office as well, our goal is to educate the buyer on the entire process so that they don't end up buying a house and saying, oh gosh, 6 months into it, I regret buying this home, absolutely regret it. No, I want every buyer that I work with to feel like this is absolutely the right home. They go all in on it, and they have the warm and fuzzies and everything else about that house. So even 2 years later, even if there is unexpected repairs, like, well, it's just the cost of owning a home that I absolutely positively love. And in the end, that's worth everything. You know, there's other people out there that will show somebody 3 homes and say, okay, which is it? A, B, or C? Which one are we writing an offer on today? Say, yeah, that's not how.
It's not how it goes.
That's not how a good agent works. Yeah. That's how a salesman works, but that's not how a realtor works.
Right. That's great advice. Yeah, I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this topic. It's something that was intriguing to me, as you know, for a long time, and you shed some great light on this, and hopefully viewers will find it helpful. And so I think the takeaway is those love letters can be a great tool, but make sure you get guidance from somebody so that you don't go down a dangerous path, and make it do what it's supposed to do, and that is make your offer appear more attractive and advantageous to the seller.
Yeah, exactly. Give the seller a little flavor of who may be buying their home. And I think that goes a long way, and it helps.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, John. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for listening to our podcast.
All right. Thanks, everybody.